स्वयं लिख्यते हृदय कुहर मध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहं इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता पवनचलन आत्मनिष्ठो देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न कस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तद्भावशुद्धिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्धा ॐ कुतो वरदिः दृष्टात्मनिष्ठात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं. Each verse is read and that reading is followed by a short meditation on its meaning, and that is followed by the practice of Atma Ucharan of 15 minutes. After these two segments of verse reading, short meditation on meaning, and the practice of Atma Ucharan are completed, there will be summing up remarks by Venkatesh Deshpande ji, and that will be followed by the offering of Sri Ramana Ashtotram. There will be chanting by Vaibhavji and Pratnama online, and we will be offering ourselves by self-enquiry as to who is the real listener of the Ashtotram. We begin the satsang by going to the first verse selected for us, verse number 165. We find this in the first segment, investigation into truth, that's followed by meditation on the truth and experience of the truth. We find the verse 165 in the subsegment, the strength of the ego. The strength of the ego. we go on till about 7:15, when we will start the self-inquiry. Verse 165, under the subhead, the strength of the ego. By accepting, when it was offered to him, the eye of Kannappa, who was proud of his eyes, it was the intention of the Lord with an eye on his forehead, Shiva, to avoid the ruination of his devotee through having the evil belief that the inert body is I. This is the glory of devotion to Shiva. By accepting, when it was offered to him, the eye of Kannappa, who was proud of his eyes, it was the intention of the Lord with an eye on his forehead, Shiva, to avoid the ruination of his devotee through having the evil belief that the inert body is I. This is the glory of devotion to Shiva. It is said that in the Kannappa story, the story is written in the preceding verse. When Kannappa offers the eye, the first eye, the story goes that seeing the offerings of Kannappa in the form of meat and other offerings lying around the linga, the priest of the puja making class, he thinks that some defiling has happened to the lingam, and he goes to bed with a lot of ill feelings about that happening. And Shiva is said to have appeared in his dream and said, no, this offering is one of the best offerings that I have received. If you want, you come and see tomorrow, but hide in the bushes and have a look. And that's when Kannappa again brings these offerings. But before he is able to offer them, he sees that blood is oozing out of one of the eyes of Shiva. And the heart goes out, the devotee's heart goes out that the Lord's eye is having an injury. He immediately uses his arrow to pluck out his eye and place it there. Already the Brahmin behind the bushes is given new insight into what is devotion. And then Kannappa sees that the other eye also starts bleeding. And that's where he places the feet to mark that eye, so that he will be able to place his second plucked out eye there. And that's when Shiva's hand comes and stops him, it is said. But Bhagavan tells us that why this incident happened at all. Why was Kannappa made to offer the eye, and why was the eye accepted? The narration from Bhagavan is that Kannappa, being of the hunter clan, he had keen eyesight, which is obviously a necessity for being a good hunter. But it must have been much better than the best of the hunters in his clan. So he had a pride in it. His ego was strongly feeling that his eyesight was much better than others. So that attachment to the body am I was very strong because of that. Some of us will have other skills, mental or intellectual, in which we will have special abilities, and we could get attached to that. And that is what we have to offer, is the indication in the story that what we have the best ability to get attached to, what is the best in us, of which we may get pride. That is what we have to offer. For whom is this best ability? Who am I? Both the ability and the possessor of the ability are offered to Shiva. In who am I, what we do when we let go of thought, who can accept it? Whatever is offered to the Supreme. And only when we let go of thought will we be able to let go of the I. In fact, the I will be hiding behind the possession. When we have some great skill, let's say I have the skill of making a good lot of puns. So I will eagerly be looking at what is the conversation that is made by the other, so that my ability to make out double meaning in those words and create a pun will be sharp. But in that very process, the ego will remain hidden, and the ego will feel very proud. Oh, what a great punster I am. Everybody is laughing, everybody is praising, and the ego gets fattened. Whereas the best approach would be, for whom is this ability? Then alone the ego is available for offering. Only when you offer your best ability, because otherwise we will be running with the best ability. We will be making use of the best ability and remain as a limited entity. That is the secret of devotion. That is the glory of devotion to Shiva. That whatever is the best in us has to be offered. In Atma Vicharam, the best, the middling, the worst, everything is offered to Shiva, so that the I is constantly offered till there is no content in the I to offer. So far as there is content, any content, who am I has to be made, and that who am I will bring out the contents from the I. Once the contents are all exhausted, there is no outward turned I. There is only merger in Shiva. And that's what we are going to practice for the next 15 minutes. Let's sit in self-enquiry for the next 15 minutes. Will be able to give. Thank you.
नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana. We continue by going to the second verse selected for us, verse 948. This is in the chapter Experience of the Truth. The subhead is having done all that needs to be done. Having done all that needs to be done. There is no feeling that one has something pending to attend to do, on the completion of which alone one will be satisfied. Having done all that needs to be done, verse 948. The injunction in the Vedas, the injunction of the Vedas, you should do these karmas, has no validity in the case of the true jnani, in whom the sense of doership, which spreads in the darkness of ignorance, has perished. The injunction of the Vedas, you should do these karmas, has no validity in the case of the true jnani, in whom the sense of doership, which spreads in the darkness of ignorance, has perished. You should know that the statements regarding the joint role of karma and jnana, karma samuchaya, are only for the purpose of protecting Vedic dharma. The Vedas have these karma kandas. In fact, Upadeshasaram has its delivery from Shiva to the rishis being practitioners of the karma kandam in the Vedas, where special rituals aimed at some desired ends are performed. But then to the jnani, who is self-realized and who cannot see anything other than the self, the attention which was seeing another is now annihilated at its source, where all actions of seeing, knowing are now not possible, because the what is only one, ekam. Only when there is two, there can be seeing, there can be knowing. How can there be any seeing, or how can there be any knowing when the jnanam is ekam? Therefore, all the karmic injunctions do not apply to the one who is abiding in the self. Jnanam bhasmasat kurute karma, it is said that the awareness that is aware of itself, or the awareness which is. Now, to be aware of itself, once again, there could be something called as shining and all that. In the self, even that is not there. The self is only being, pure being, in which even the shining of self-knowing is not there. Self-knowing is a power. Even that power subsides when only one is. Where is the need for any power? Power comes up only as an illusion and could lead to the triad and the creation, if ignorance is festered. Therefore, self-attention leads to the inward turned eye, which makes for subsidence into the self, where all karmas are at an end. And that's what we are going to practice for the next 15 minutes. Junji, you can set the time for us.
Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. May I request Venkatesh ji to give us the summing up remarks. Namo Ramana, sir.
Oh, Ramana. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jnanamulam Gurur Murti, Pujamulam Gurur Padam, Mantramulam Vakyam, Mokshamulam Gurur, Mokshamulam Gurur. Namo Ramana. Self-experience is the best experience. So let me give you some examples. When you leave the self and go get to doership, what happens? And this body has experienced many of them. So I thought I'll share a few of them so that it becomes amply clear who the doer is. So I love food. So what happens whenever I go for food and I really want to enjoy the food. It may be some avial that has come in front of me. I really want to enjoy the food, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to enjoy." I put that food in my mouth, and in so many occasions, I either have a hair in the food or there will be a stone in the food. It's unbelievable. This body has had 3 root canals done because of enjoying food, and the stones have chipped off the teeth in my mouth, so that it gets rotten, and I have to get a root canal done. One example. Another example, there was once that, maybe there was a sense of doership with all these morning satsangs. So there may be somewhere there must have been a sense of doership. And then Bhagwan switched off my throat. He says, you cannot speak. So for more than, I don't know, 3 to 4 weeks or even more, I couldn't speak. I couldn't speak at all. Throat was gone. So then suddenly he says, "Oh, you were doing it, huh?" So the second lesson, third lesson, Ashtotra. So many. Oh, I know Ashtotra. All the 108 names of Bhagwan, I can tell you one after the other. And you start chanting Ashtotra, and then what happens? Suddenly in the middle, you think, "Oh, how beautifully I'm chanting Ashtotra," and the sense of doership comes. And next, Bhagwan Nama forgotten. You forget the next Nama. You don't know what's next Nama. And then what happens? Then sense of doership. Oh, you know all the my names. Then Bhagwan says, now you've forgotten. So who's the doer? And another case where you make a presentation, spend a lot of time, discuss with so many people, presentation ready, projector does not work. It can't project whatever you have actually prepared. Again, oh, you have done all the work. The projector is who? Do you know who runs that projector? Then I run that projector, Bhagwan says. He'll make the projector not work and see that what happens to you. Look at your body. Forget about everything outside. I'm taking all these outside examples. Look at this body. How is the heart pumping? How is the food that goes and gets digested and the next day morning it comes out? How is the potassium levels, the sodium levels, the bile being secreted? Have you ever thought about it? Never, never thought about it. So Bhagwan says, this is what he says. When one devotee was following Bhagwan up the Arunachala hill, he said, go back. Go back to from where you came. That means what? Go back to the self. Don't leave the self. Don't think that you were outside the self. That's why Argamal, What she told Bhagwan? Throw my body into the bushes for all I care. Because body is nothing. This body is absolutely jada. There's absolutely no truth in it. But within this is the God. Hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahmamatam. So see what Bhagwan is trying to tell us. He's trying to say, by his will everything happens. Everything. He is the director. He knows the first scene, he knows the last scene. He is the master of timing and placement. If you look at our lives, everything has had to happen so beautifully. It's impossible to have happened without the will of God. So the Bhagwan is continuously telling us that you have to drop doership. You have to drop this thing of that I am the doer. Go within, do self-enquiry. When you do self-enquiry, what happens? You realize everything, not even a dry leaf will move without a will of God. This is something that we have to truly believe within. When you truly believe that everything happens by His will, then everything is perfect. You may think it's not perfect, you may think it is out of place, but that has a purpose. If something is not in place, also it has a purpose, and you will see that. Swami Chidananda once my guru was came to an airport, and he found there were flowers which were arrangement on the floor, and some of the flowers were not in place. So Swami Chidananda stopped there. He actually placed all the next 15-20 minutes. He was just placing all the flowers properly on the in the flower arrangement, and when it was all perfectly well, he got up and started walking out of the airport. What a great lesson for all the people who watched. Because you, when you if we truly believe that God is within you, everything has to be done with perfection. What is God? God is perfection. He wants you to do everything. When you are in the now, he wants you to do it perfectly well. So that's what Bhagavan wants us to do also. In everything that we want to do, hold on to the self. Then the sense of you doing goes. Everything is done by him. Once everything is done by him, you just have to enjoy life, enjoy the fun, because He is the only doer. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana, sir. Thank you. Namo Ramana Vaibhavji and Pratnama. May we begin the chanting of the Ashtotram.
Yes, sir. Namo Ramana. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि ॐ महासेन महोंसेन जाताय नमः ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः ॐ गुरवे नमः ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः ॐ महौजसे नमः ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोत्थिताय नमः ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः ॐ तीव्राय नमः ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः ॐ तपोमयाय नमः ॐ उदासीनाय नमः ॐ महायोगिने नमः ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः ॐ कुशाग्रदिये नमः ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसम्रम्भाय नमः ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः ॐ सवित्रे नमः स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपित सर्वांगाय नमः। ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहास श्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ च्यूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजतचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्यनिभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः। ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलऋद्बौद्धस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः।
ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः।
ॐ विनताय नमः।
ॐ
ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ ऋक्चान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः।
ॐ
नमः।
ॐ
संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणादृशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः।
ॐ
हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः।
ॐ
नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः।
ॐ दलुधराय नमः।
ॐ शूद्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः।
ॐ
ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः।
ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः।
ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनाम पूजां समर्पयामि। स्थानो अरुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्याजनिं प्राप्यत देव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशात् सादात्म्यभावं गतः निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनासेकरात् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
नमो रमना प्रार्थना। नमो रमना वैभव जी। नमो रमना टॉल। नमो रमना वेंकटेश जी। नमो रमना।
नमो रमणा।